Hi everyone and welcome back. This is Sky coming on to talk to you about the entire month ahead of September 2023, the comprehensive astrology. In this video, I will be telling you about my own intuitive messages about the month of September, as well as pull up some charts, and we will look at some of the specific transits happening throughout the month. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to hit the subscribe button below, give it a thumbs up, and check out the description box where you can find all 12 zodiac readings for each sign for September on Patreon, as well as weekly forecasts. So yes, everyone, I'm very happy. You guys know how much I love the final calendar quarter of each year. September, October, and November especially, I think, could be one of my favorite times of the year, although I do quite enjoy spring as a season as well. Really, the equinox points are some of my favorite times of the year because they feel like a seasonal feeling of balance to me, as of course we move closer in September to the equinox, where we will have where we will return back to the equal day and night around the 21st, and we will enter the season of fall here in the northern hemisphere. I hope you guys are excited for that. It's going to be really a very different consciousness that a lot of us are starting to experience here. Many things are complete, you all. I urge you, moving from this cusp of like August to September 2023, I urge you to really conclude on certain long running things, especially anything stagnant, anything that you feel like you're kind of having to like reach for to like make relevant in your life. Really assess what is truly relevant, what is overdone, what is oversaturated, and also what fresh new growth is really wanting to come into your life. September 2023, as usual, I find September to be one of the most transformative months of the year usually. This year is no exception to that. We're going to really be in this month taking a look at polarities in our life as we move from the Virgo Pisces axis at the beginning of September to the Aries Libra axis. And this year, both of those axes are going to have a lot of energy on both sides. So especially the Pisces and Aries side will have multiple, of course, outer planets, especially on the Pisces side. We have Saturn, Neptune in Pisces, and then in the Aries side, we have Chiron in Aries, as well as the North Node. So yeah, it's going to be a very energetic season connected to both the inner planets and outer planets, meaning that we're going to have real changes, real material manifested, tangible, really seismic changes during this September. And thinking intuitively about it, well, as I was meditating, I felt that there was how would I explain it? It's almost like a disintegration of certain things which have been over-focused. Okay, so it's kind of like, if you've ever made jewelry before, you would notice that if you mess with the metal too much, it can sometimes just totally like disintegrate or break. There will be that happening in September, so keep a firm eye and more of an empathetic stance on that which is getting overstressed, overused in your life. I'm seeing a lot of people come to me asking about stress injuries lately. I've talked about it ever since we had those Saturn-Uranus squares. That's where it started. If you want to go back and do some shadow work into like late 2021 and a bit of 2022, that's the root area of a lot of these new stress injuries that have come up for a lot of people. And it's very deep. So people find things that work in their life, or they find things that give a result, and then they get over invested in it, or they get over confident with it. It's like you find that one exercise that you like and you only do that exercise. And that leads to what that exercise targets being overused, which can then degrade or disintegrate basically the basis of all of your energy connection. So I talked in the August comprehensive astrology video about sort of the circuit board of life and how a lot of us are looking at like the channels in our life and seeing like where there's too much energy flow. Very easy during this time to have like circuit breakers blow or to have like electrical issues. I've actually just had that in my own house. I had plugged something in and the electrical wires totally went out and I had to have an electrician come. It didn't like blow the breaker. So that was funny because that happened after I had made that message about the circuit board in August. This was like later in August when this happened. And it was interesting because I'm like, gosh, that was a really real prediction, not even just poetic or symbolic, but really real. So that's another thing that I might predict about this time is more of a material reality outcomes. So if you have certain intuitions or feelings, it may be less poetic now. So we came out of a nodal axis, Taurus and Scorpio, where we were a lot more liable to have like sort of like poetic or romanticized turnouts. And now we're in a little bit more of a point blank, obvious energy. And that's going to also be something that we're dealing with in September, is realizing, okay, this is more real. This is more like the things that I'm feeling, or the things that I'm expecting, or the things that I'm considering are not just poetic intervals. They are real. Okay, so that's also what I talked about in the Venus retrograde video, was this feeling of like the inner understanding, or the inner persona, the inner vision of what's going on. How congruent or not is that with the outer reality? This is so good, because it's like it's needing to be less poetic. It's needing to come more into conjunction. Okay, so we have real manifestation happening here, you all. So understanding that we have real manifestation happening here, definitely coming out of August, understand what you don't want in your life anymore, what you do want in your life, and start just getting it out. If it's not good, if it's a habit you don't like, just get it out. Don't overthink it. I'm seeing a lot of people with this really dignified Virgo energy. This year we had a Mercury-Mars conjunction coming out of August in Virgo. We have a retrograde Earth trine coming through also during this month of September. We could very easily overthink things, or we could think we have like these material ideas or these visions, and then it's too much of like a planning headache, or too much of a logistical price to pay. Paying attention to things like that, the cost of logistics, the cost of administration, the cost of planning and blueprinting, is something that has to be budgeted for, but be careful about getting imbalanced either way with that. September will want us to strike more of a balance in general, all across the board in our lives, as the sun will apply to the South Node. And for the first time, we will have the sun illuminating by conjunction this new nodal axis. So we're going to also, in the month of September, and this will be quite later, actually into October before that exactly happens, right? We have the nodes very late in Libra and Aries, so it won't be until October that exact conjunction happens. Nonetheless, it will apply in the sign of Libra by the end of this month towards the South Node. So we're going to start getting like more understanding. What does this next nodal paradigm mean? What is this next set of challenges in my life? What is the area of imbalance? Is going to get very, very obvious, especially into October. So that's a really good thing to know in September, is that any area of imbalance, extreme polarity, unsustainability is about to get really, really obvious in October. And it will kind of like build through September, especially once we cross into Libra season. So that also gives me hope, because you could do a lot of work in September as it relates to gaining balance in any imbalanced area of your life. So if you have like an imbalanced diet, if you have an imbalanced sleep cycle, if you have an imbalanced routine, or if you're like a workaholic, try to place new conditions or constraints onto any area of imbalance in your life, and you will do better in October and for the next year and a half throughout this entire nodal cycle. Again, when you have like the first sun conjunct the nodes, which again we have in October, that is a big testing point. Like that's a big point where like the sun reveals and illuminates the status of your experience within this greater time paradigm. Again, to me, the nodes are such a great medium-term transit, as they change signs about every year and a half. It's a great medium-term window to work with like real planning and real paradigm. So I would definitely say September is a very difficult month to have any type of attitude like, I'm just going to do what I feel like doing. I'm just going to, kind of take a response that's like maybe immature, or because the North Node in Aries might want that as well. There might be these feelings like, I have plenty of time to eventually finish that degree. I have plenty of time to eventually get my diet right. My health is only slightly off. I don't think that I need to really address that right now. These types of feelings, right? These procrastination-oriented feelings. Procrastination is a big pitfall with the North Node in Aries and South Node in Libra. Also, what would I call it? Like, not immature so much, almost like adolescent psychologies or adolescent, I don't want to get the root canal because I'm scared to go to the dentist. I'm just going to not look at that for a while. I don't want to pay those taxes or pay that debt because I can't. I don't feel like I can afford that right now. So it's not like a matter of like not being able to do it. It's not a matter of not being able to go to the dentist. It's not a matter of not being able to pay it. It's not feeling like, nobody wants to do these things. But we have a little bit of a test here about these kinds of like adolescent psychologies. And the way that we assert that or not in September is going to be definitive for us in October when we get that first sun illumination. Okay, next thing I want to talk about for September. Pluto is getting really far back into Capricorn, back to 27 degrees, moving from 28 to 27. So there's going to be a biting period of time. What do I mean? So most of us, okay, unless you're like totally new wave and very ahead of your time, most of us are still reliant on things which are about to expire. Okay, most of us are still reliant on things that are unsustainable. Pluto's back in Capricorn. That has been a very powerful 15-year transit for economy, for status, for material power, for ownership, okay, for hierarchy. But that which has been gained or that which has been sort of created at a core level will start to disintegrate here. That's another force happening in the sky right now that implies to me some level of disintegration or degradation or, again, I'm so looking forward to getting Pluto back into Aquarius just because it's so tired in Capricorn. It's been over the cusp already, and it's back in Capricorn. And of course, there's something to learn about that, and especially it has to do with friction. It has to do with over trust in the material, monetary, economic, trade-oriented dimension. Okay, it has to do with over-reliance. It has to do also with fear of truth and fear of self-expression in an authentic sense. Rather, it trusts more, at this point in this retrograde sense, it trusts more in a sort of social, material monolith that is not so self-determined, but rather collectively generated, but not collectively distributed. So we have like a question of like, what are the limitations that people are getting on certain levels of mobility? And it's going to be a lot of degradation and deterioration. So I'm, again, like just keeping your eye on these like stress injuries. Also, these can be totally in the mind and psychological, overthinking things, overstressing something in the mind, losing sleep over something, causing permanent damage for some people, relating to how they allow themselves to experience peace or not in their lives. So a lot of the cures to this are not really going to be revealed until the next Pluto, and a lot of that revelation will deal with just walking away, withdrawing, or reinventing. And it's going to be very healing for some people to transcend some of those more material grid things, but this could be starting in September, though there could also be a resurgence of the old way of doing things as viable, which may be transient in the like 4 to 5 year context. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about before we talk just about astrology transits is weaving. Okay, I feel that this is a time of combining many different components, combining many different materials to create a greater overarching system in your life. Okay, so be careful about too much singularity. Be careful about also forcing things to happen too quickly. It seems like a more careful time of pulling things together as we kind of understand the current. All right, let's go ahead and pull these charts up onto the screen, and I'll talk to you guys about just some transits that we have happening. Okay, let's see. All right, so we are, as you can see, you see like the Virgo, Pisces, and then Libra, Aries axis, which is so focused on to the left and to the right. So we change from that Virgo, Pisces to that Libra, Aries time. Of course, the Libra, Aries axis in astrology is associated with polarity and specifically like bouncing back and forth between extremes. So that could be happening here. There could be a very hot and cold kind of feeling, like one day it's all that we want to do, the next day we don't want to have anything to do with it. There's a lot to learn from that bouncing back and forth. And there's a lot to question about it. And most of us are going to have to get a little bit more mature here and put stuff out in front of us in a way that we can actually make more mature decisions moving forward. Also, we start the month with Venus and Mercury retrograde, as well as Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto. So quite a few retrogrades we're starting the month with. And we will end the month also having Uranus go retrograde. And yes, of course, we will have all of the outer planets retrograde by the end of the month, which is not that rare. That happens like once a year. All of Mercury goes retrograde 3 times a year, and all of the other planets other than Venus and Mars go retrograde once a year at least. Okay, so yes, it's not like the end of the world that all those are retrograde, but it's the time of the fact that they're doing it all at the same time, of course, and it's always going to have every year some type of a different meaning attached to it. And usually, you can kind of see the way that the year works, right? It's kind of seasonal. Like it's better to like really move forward and then also recede and to reap and to sow and so on and so forth. And that kind of, to me, is something that I think of when I see all the outer planets going retrograde once a year. And then there's a time of all planets direct, and you can kind of correlate that with really easy forward momentum and then more rest. So yes, we can see that we're kind of needing to go into more of a rest here. And also that there's going to be a little bit more bouncing back and forth. So I see like a lot of people deliberating. I see a lot of people throughout the month of September kind of like assuming like, okay, if I choose this path, the best and worst outcome is this. If I choose that path, the best and worst outcome is this. There's a lot of this visionary persona building stuff. And you can kind of start to compare like who you're becoming to like what each of these paths represent and see if you like the harmony. Something that I like about this new nodal axis that we're in is that it's very harmony focused, and it likes for things to match. It likes for things to make sense. It likes for, coming off of the previous nodal axis, it likes for our goals to kind of match the ancestral context. It likes also for our bodies to kind of match maybe like the ancestral context as well. It likes for sure for the, the clothes that we're wearing to match the season. There needs to be sense here to have a kind of like natural cellular well-being. It seems like a very harsh time to be too, what would I say? I don't know. Letting fads and trends kind of turn you away from something that just naturally works. So for example, at a certain point it can't work at all. Like I've decided that I want to harvest my crops, in the Northern Hemisphere in December. It's crazy. Like it's not, and I suppose it's not impossible. I suppose you could like build an entire like bio farm or something and like put like all of these lights and heaters and stuff in there and make that happen. And maybe that could be like really trendy, but like, couldn't we just harvest at the time of year that is natural? Okay. So things along these lines is kind of like the Pluto cusp question as well. Are we going to do unnatural things by going to such a huge effort just to kind of like prove something to ourselves? Or can we work more with the inherent natural situation? Okay. Very interesting. Another thing to think about is that we do have an exact Mars South Node conjunction happening by the end of September. So we're going to really get active with the whole like channeling up the ancestral knowledge, the ancestral pursuits, the ancestral movements in a very masculine, direct way. So I'm seeing a lot of people really channeling this is interesting. Yeah, late 2023 is going to be about this. It's like, how can you afford the most energy as possible by like also not getting it clogged up inside. So like if you have a lot of energetic things in your life, try to not just turn off and go stagnant, because then you're holding too much energy inside. It's like the people getting more energy, which a lot of people on this channel I would say are. If you're getting a lot of energy coming through, you've got to spend that so that you're not like holding too much. Again, with that previous message about the circuit board and some channels being over focused and things can like blow, things can like get too much energy. Mars conjunct South Node in Libra. Try to channel energy in a different way here, or understand like the meaning, especially if you're having like these grand spiritual ideas or these grand feelings about like path or momentum or goals. Understand how much energy that takes and how much energy you also have to spend in balancing that. There's going to be a lot of natural knowledge coming through about the balance, the budget of energy flowing through by the end of September. Okay. Saturn continuing to retrograde in Pisces. It moves from 3 degrees at the beginning of the month back to 1 degrees of Pisces. So it's moving onto the Aquarius Pisces cusp, basically. And that means that Saturn is overwhelmed by the sign of Pisces. Okay, so in the same way that Pluto was kind of overwhelmed by Aquarius. This happens with outer planets on cusps because they move more slowly and they take time to move many degrees. But there's that feeling to me in most people right now. It's like, okay, I know there's a new territory. I know there's something that I need to pioneer. But I think I have to go back to what I'm accustomed to for a while before I do it. That's something that would be coming up in September, but I want you to understand that that's transient. And by the time we're getting really into the next few years, like especially through 2024 and into 2025, these types of mindsets, like I kind of want to dip my toe into something new and then come back to the safety point, that can work now. And that's demonstrated in the general astrology right now, but at a certain point in time, that can't work. So allow it now if that's what you would like, but also understand that eventually there's going to have to be a choosing either this or that path, okay? And I've been feeling that really strongly. Okay, what else do I want to talk about with astrology transits? I'll have a Mercury and Uranus retrograde video, so we won't go into that here. But yes, of course, we will have Mercury retrograde, especially in the beginning of the first half of the month. And yes, the retrograde Earth trine is something that we can conclude on for this video. We do have that. We have Pluto retrograde in Capricorn, Uranus and Jupiter retrograde in Taurus, and Mercury retrograde in Virgo at the beginning of the month. It means that the current material context for a lot of people is going to have to be totally redone, or there has to be a certain resolution reached at a material level that gets us out of this gray zone purgatorial place. I feel like you see the combining that with the previous message about like Pluto and Saturn being retrograde on these cusps. It feels like people don't have all of the benefits of anything because they won't choose. So it's like this middle zone. It's like this, we have a little bit coming from different places and maybe that sustains us, but it's too overwhelming to like consider it all or to plan around it all. So what we need to see starting during this transit is resolution and acceptance of our own decision-making process. So when people get stuck in these middle zones, okay, on one side we can kind of call it in a cliche sense, like wanting to have the cake and eat it too. I don't love that saying because that feels condescending, but there's something of that here. There's something of like not wanting to settle for anything, not wanting to really get chained down. But it is not actually that, because this chains you down. This chains you down into like a sort of like oblivion of like overthinking or having to like be too privy to too many different things. It's too much for one person to be so like invested in so many different places. So I think that everybody's there, but what we can see throughout this month of September and over these oncoming months, retrograde Earth trine, is kind of like an understanding, like, you know, something's got to change here. Something has to kind of be reinvented or polished up differently. And what I would do is I would really get clear on general understandings of like where or what it is that you want to do, and trying to kind of like, again, visualize this like a deeper persona. Is it possible? Is it materially real? Can you start to make a chronology here of like certain like aspirations, or a chronology of certain like events? with this middle zone, there's an opportunity. That's one of the only opportunities of this kind of like middle zone experience, is like you've got so many rods in the fire, or you've got so many different compelling possibilities that you can kind of like actually think of it, or you can actually realize it, or you can actually consider it, and then you can kind of like empathize with it. You can't necessarily know how it would go, but what you can do is you can think about it. And people underestimate the power of just believing or considering certain possibilities. So I would give that to yourself, and I would spend quite a bit of time here thinking, okay, about all of the different paths that are open to you and how they could transpire. And based on these results, and based on the connotations that they give your persona, that's very important here with this astrology, the connotation, the context of certain paths compared to sort of like the ultimate outcome of some of these like persona-based ideas. Very important to understand that. Now, what I will also tell you is that does not mean that that's what would happen. I feel that people... also, this late Pluto in Capricorn is actually very superstitious. So a lot of people get really tied into possibilities and subjective situations, especially with Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, too. It makes it a very good time to be an astrologer. But maybe we should offset that a little bit, and maybe we should also understand that being over-assumptive or being over-predictive or over-obsessed with potentialities is also in a way to deny a type of higher force. And that's something that Pluto in Capricorn at this late degree is also very famous for. It's like allowing too much power to these potentials or to these like thoughts, which are still human at the end of the day. So anyway, that's just food for thought for you all. I feel like this is where we're at a collective consciousness level in September 2023. Bringing that down as we conclude this video, try to just depolarize certain things in your life. Think about different momentums. Try to establish a certain order of events if you can, and keep contributing to the things that really matter to you. So thank you so much, everyone. Happy September. I'm wishing you love, light, and luck in this month ahead. Check out the description box below. All 12 signs are on Patreon. It's very valuable in this economic environment. I think it's a very, very sort of like a good rate to get all of that content. It's like 16 premium contents a month that you get for a very good price, and it helps to make this possible at this time. So come check those out. Those are ad-free, seamless, and just very, very spot on, I think, for this month ahead. So I will link that below. Do subscribe to the channel and comment below and let me know what you think about September as well. Have a great month, everyone. Bye.